recording? I think we are. Okay, welcome. I'm going to give you a basic tutorial on the pieces of a chessboard. Each opponent starts with a row of pawns, 8 pawns, 8 pawns, so you've got exactly the same. Each player starts with two rooks, yeah. Each player starts with 2 knights. Each player starts with 2 bishops, and each player starts with a king and queen. They're the pieces and they're the names. What are the pieces worth? A pawn is worth 1 point, a rook is worth 5 points, a knight is worth 3, a bishop is worth 3, a queen is worth 9, and of course that's the most valuable piece on the board, and it has no price. If you lose your king, you've lost the game. So basically it goes up to 9. So this is basically a basic tutorial on the moves. A pawn, which is these guys here in in this rank here, which is rank 2. Let's say we're going to go file B and we're doing rank 2, and this pawn can move either 1 square on its first move or 2 squares on its first move. Now that's the first move of the game. Later on in the game you might want to move another pawn 1 square, or you may want to move it 2 squares. Thereafter, whichever one you move 1 square or 2 squares on its first move, you can choose 1 square or 2. Thereafter it can only move 1 square at a time. Thereafter 1 square. You can't go 1 move and then, oh, I'll have a 2 mover. No, it's 2 moves on its first move, and each pawn has the ability to do that. So does your opponent. Thereafter, how do you take with a pawn? You take diagonally. So if he's sitting here, he can take this square. He's attacking these 2 squares here, that square and that square. If he moves this square, you can take that off the board. Thanks very much. Now, if, however, you get to a position where he's put his pawn there and he's attacking this square and this square, and you go, oh, I'll do my 2 move. So if I move here, I'm putting him in harm's way, aren't I? So that, I don't want to do that, do I? So I'll stick it there. Well, there's another rule for a pawn. He can do el faisant. He can, because he's attacking that piece, there's a rule in chess that says a pawn can't jump over an attacking square. So if he puts his pawn there, you can still move to that attacking square and take him off the board. Now, another rule says, if he doesn't do that when he moved his pawn, and then you move the knight, say, he moves his knight across, he can't go back oh, I'll do a faisant on that one. You can't do it. That choice is now gone. You've got to do it as he moves it. So that's your pawns, the best I can do. And I think I've covered everything. How do you take? There's plenty of other stuff you can go for when it comes to like formations of pawns. That's strategy. You can write. There is books dedicated to pawn structures. So I'm not going to go into that. Basic moves. This is your rook, and they can only go in straight lines. So any straight line it wants across the board. Okay, it can even go in straight lines up and down the board. Yeah, straight line, straight line. It can go 1 square at a time if it wants to, but only in a straight line. And that's how it also takes. So if he had his bishop here, you can take his bishop. Done. And you can go from one side of the board to the other, and vice versa. The knight goes 2 squares up, so it goes 1, 2, and then 1 to the side. 2 squares along, 1 to the side. 2 squares along, 1 to the side. 2 squares, 1 to the side. 2 squares, 1 to the side. So it's almost an L shape. So 2, 1. The bishop can move in it only diagonally, so it can go diagonal 1 square, yeah, or it can come all the way across the board. if my bishop finds itself over here, it can go from that side of the board to the other side of the board in that run. It can't go in straight lines. That it can't do. It can only go diagonally. The queen has got the power of the bishop and the rook, right? The queen can go in straight lines if it wants to, or it can go diagonally. So it can go like this if it wants. Yeah? Down, across. So it's straight lines and diagonally. That's the most, I'd say it's almost the most powerful piece on the board. If not the most powerful. Now we move on to the king. The king can only move one square at a time, but it can move if sitting here, it could move on any one of those square around it, any one of those squares. So it can go like this, or it might want to go there, or it might want to go there. So any square it can land on. So if it's up against that, it can land on those 5 squares there. It doesn't move 2 squares, it moves 1 square at a time. And that's it really. I can't think of nothing else that needs to be said. But a combination of your pawn structure and some of your lesser pieces. So I actually think your pawn is in the right formation can be very strong, backed up by your knights, your rooks and your bishops. If you keep pushing your pawn to the other side of the board and it gets promoted, so let's get rid of these, let's get rid of all of that actually, right? And let's go, for instance, that this guy here that sat on the b file on the black side ended up here. He can promote this pawn. He's the only piece that can get promoted, and he can promote this to a queen, a bishop, a knight, or a rook. So let's say he's taken some pieces off the board, and let's say he took one of his rooks off the board. He could say, I want to promote this pawn to a rook. It now becomes a rook. But most often than not, when he does this and he gets his pawn to the side, it's exchanged for a queen. But your choices of promoting a pawn that gets to the opponent's top rank is those ones there, which is a queen, a rook, a knight, or a bishop. And then you can have 2 queens on the board. So that's the only piece. That's why I say I think the pawn is the most powerful piece on the board. That's my point of view. You may have different views on yourself. Anything else? No. Say the queen can't do the knight move. The only move that the queen can't do is the knight move. It can't jump pieces. So the knights do 2, 1 along. 2 in a straight line, 1 along. The queen can't do that move, right? You can't promote your pawn to a king. You can't have 2 kings, and that's it really. I hope you found that the basics, and hopefully in the next video I hope to do something along the lines of formation and openings, for which I actually prefer, and I'm going to try and do some bit of research into finding that perfect opening to give you that edge, hopefully in your game, to get you started. So I know for a fact there's textbook openings that allow you to castle, for which I didn't show you. So let's show you castling before we finish. So you've got two rooks, as you go, 2 rooks either side, and your king goes in the e file. So, and also when you set up the board, whatever colour your queen is, so if I'm white, then I'm going to make sure my white queen is on a white square. If you're black, you make sure your black queen is on a black square. So your kings should face each other and your queen should face each other. If you notice your queen on the wrong colour, on wrong its colour, so white, white, black, black, if you notice that's different, you've set the board up wrong. That's as simple as that. And if you're white, your king goes on the right. Job done. So let's get rid of the queen. I'm talking about castling. So this is castling on the queen side, and this is castling on the king side. This in notation is 0, 0, 0, and most often than not it does this. And it basically jumps an extra square. So castling on the queen side, you go further across, and that's castling on the queen side. If you're castling on the king side, which is on your right, if I'm white, the king goes 1, 2, and this rook goes there, that side. So rook, now king, and that's 0, 0, castling on that side. You can only castle if the king hasn't moved. If the king's had to get out of check, yeah, your castling, your choice of castling, you can't do. So, and if you've moved this rook and then move it back, you can't, say this rook's way out of bed and you've moved this, you can't move this rook back and then go, I'm going to castle now. If you move your rooks, right, but not move your king, you still can't castle. You can only castle with a rook that hasn't moved and a king that hasn't moved. So I could do these two. There they go. So that's castling. And they say within the first 10 moves of your opening game, you should castle. That gets your king safe. That's textbook. And thereafter, by then you've entered your middle game. Chess goes into a whole new strategy after that. So at the moment, they're the basic moves: castling, basic pieces, what they're worth. And I hope you find this informative. And look out for my next video on a basic textbook opening. So thank you very much for watching, and check out I love chessfanatic.blogspot.com. Thank you.